Tonight's Modern Men is powered by the Hero Initiative. Interested in becoming a hero? Go to heroinitiative.org to see how you can be a hero to those comic creators in need. All right, guys, welcome to Modern Men. It's Monday. It's 10:05 Eastern Standard Time. Oh, man, we got a heck of a show tonight. We're going to talk about Spider-Man Life Story that won the poll with over 60 votes last week. So we're getting a little bit more votes on that community tab each and every week. And spoilers, if you guys want to be spoiled, the new poll is already on the next community tab. So if you're interested in seeing what we're going to read next week, you can go ahead and get your votes in now because I didn't feel like scheduling them. I just threw it up there. So go ahead, look at the community tab if you'd like. Start putting your votes in now. But Spider-Man Life Story was the runner-up a couple weeks back. So it got put on the poll last week and actually won. So we're going to read it tonight. And we're revisiting the movies. Unfortunately, with the way things are in the world right now, we can't go out in the movies. So we're just going to reminisce on some of our favorite movies. And we're going to start in 2012. So definitely excited to talk about. There's some phenomenal movies, some unforgettable movies that came from comics, and a couple duds in there I cannot wait to rant about. So without further ado, I want to get into our panel here. So, oh my God, look at that beard. More majestic every week as the time goes on. Andy, how you doing? How's the beard? How's the comb?
Doing great. This beard, it's almost as if I've gotten bit by a bearded radioactive spider.
Oh, there you go.
You know, maybe that's the...
We'll read ComicManAndy beard story next.
There you go.
There's one for you. There's a dad joke for the there. JB, how you doing down there?
I'm wonderful, man. Things are going great. You know, I thought you just showed me like in the most amazing Comic Con Spider-Man intro. What happened to that thing? We're not going to use that?
It's coming up. It's
coming up. Okay. I don't want to spoil it, man. That was like amazing. I didn't want to just blow. I'm like, okay, that's a teaser. You know what that is? Now I just teased it. It's teased.
Nice. We got
everybody's in here because when you see it, you're gonna be like, "Oh yeah."
I'll just say, you know who else is teasing us? Two Brothers Comics.
Two Brothers.
$2 super chat. Hashtag the beard. Man, those guys are on fire lately.
They are on fire.
Definitely check out Two Brothers Comics. They know how to do it right over there on their webpage or channel. Everything. I sound like an old man. Like www.http. But anyway, Two Brothers. Big huge thanks for the $2 super chat. Drew, hopefully he'll be joining us at some point. He's still sleeping, I think. So look out for Drew. If anyone has his phone number, wake him up. Tell him it's Comic Con Modern Men time. Without further ado, let's get into this chat. Chris Barrett thinks he's first, but little did he know on the Facebook side at 6:30 p.m. Sam's Tangled Web, he's burned it down on the Facebook side. He says, good to see some Spidey love. So how you doing, Sam? And then in second place is Chris Barrett. How you doing, Chris? And then we got the Stream Elements robot, one of my favorites in the chat. Chad R says, sorry late. How you doing, Chad? Nice to see you out and about in the chat. I'm sure he's got plenty of things going on with Mainframe Comic Con. Link is down below. We'll hype up that here in a second. We got Backseat Driver 5280. How you doing, Backseat? Nice to see you as well in the chat. And we got Just a Rican and his comics. I know they went live earlier tonight, so check them out on the rewind. We got Scott Evans. How you doing, man? Yeah, Two Brothers totally laughing at me calling it the webpage. I know I sound like an old man tonight. And then Chris Barrett says, don't wake sleeping Drews. So, all right. So let me get some banners up here. Before we continue, we got to hustle the Mainframe Comic Con. That's coming at you April 25th and 26th. Big shout out to our friends out there, Chuckload of Comics and the Chumpcast for helping put Mainframe Comic Con together. They're doing some phenomenal work. You guys can check out the link below. But Comic Core Chad actually popped in earlier and gave us a couple exclusives that we can announce here who's going to be at Mainframe Comic Con. So turns out our friends from Ahoy Comics are going to be there. So we've got Tom Payer, famous for The Wrong Earth, Stuart Moore of Captain Ginger and Bronze Age Boogie fame, Mark Russell from Second Coming and Billionaire Island, Richard Pace, also from Second Coming, and Mariah Court, Ash and Thorn. So be on the lookout for those people to get added to the Mainframe Comic Con docket. JB, what do you think about Mainframe Comic Con?
I think there is so much stuff going on there. I mean, we're talking about a 2-day event, all free. These panels, the celebrities, the artist alley, the retailing that's going to happen with the LCSs. There's a lot of stuff going on there, man. It's going to be phenomenal.
Awesome. And actually, I have a couple more announcements as the show goes on, so stay tuned to Modern Men. I may have a couple more names to drop from the comic book realm who's going to be making appearances at Mainframe Comic Con. But we also got 3 Men in the Basements in the chat. What's going on, Otto? Happy to see you in the chat. And we got Bear Island Comics. What is going on, Bear? All right. So without further ado, we need to get into our read of the week. And I know Drew's asleep, but at least he was nice enough to put this together for us. So without further ado, here's Spider-Man Life Story. All right. Thank you so much for that, Drew. Like I said, someone call him and wake him up. We don't know where he is, but he made that nice.
Was cool.
Spider-Man Life Story. So anyway, Spider-Man Life Story. I think I said this as it was coming out. It was my favorite Marvel read. I believe it came out in 2019, last year. And I think for me, that was the best thing I read from Marvel last year. Basically, if you guys aren't familiar with Life Story, imagine a story of this canonical character like Spider-Man, of course, created in the 60s and revolutionized up until 2020 this year. So basically, Spider-Man Life Story starts in the 60s, and you actually get to follow the progression of that character from the 60s all the way up until 2019. So Peter Parker ages every bit from the 1960s all the way up to 2019, and the stories they use are based on the eras he's in. So for instance, we've read Kraven's Last Hunt on this show. That was from the late 80s. So when does Kraven's Last Hunt happen to Peter Parker? It happens to him in the late 80s. So he's a little bit more grizzled and older when he's getting attacked by Kraven. So cool idea. I really hope we see more of it from Marvel. So I want to get into some initial impressions here. So Andy, I'll let you talk about Life Story. What were your initial impressions on Spider-Man Life Story?
I was torn. My first read through, I didn't like it. I enjoy Chip Zdarsky as a writer, but I feel like this much writing in this story kind of pulled me away from Bagley's art a lot of times. Chip Zdarsky, he's very descriptive, very detail orientated, and that's not a bad thing. And you come to expect that. At least I come to expect that from Chip Zdarsky when I'm reading his books. This just felt really, really detailed and pretty word heavy, but I read it a second time this weekend, and as I went through it a second time, it grew on me a lot more. I don't know what it is. My first impressions of a book are never really what they end up being a second, third, or fourth read through. So I'm starting to read our weekly reads. I'm starting to read them 2 or 3 times, actually.
Wow.
Just sitting on one. Depending on how deep it is. But like I said, I didn't care for it on my first read. My second read through, I really started feeling and understanding Peter Parker, Gwen, MJ, and everybody through the decades. And then at the end of it, and I put it down that second time, I was like, oh, I didn't get it the first time. It's literally a story about him through his lifetime, not just... It's at face value. Spider-Man Life Story, right there on the cover. This book, you can judge by its cover.
JB, initial thoughts.
Initial thoughts. I think, okay, I think that this was kind of masterful in respect to the way that, remember how when House of X, Powers of X came out and they were kind of explaining timelines that were going on, or kind of giving you those Easter eggs to past X-Men stories that made you feel good. This does the same thing. It hits all the major Spider-Man storylines through the decades that happen. And as you're reading them, you're like, oh, you get that good feeling about, oh, okay. Yeah, I see how they did that. and every decade has that. I thought it was done really well. Really well. Nice. Drew, man, thanks for joining us. By the way, Drew, your intro bumper on that was fire, bro.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. A little bit of fire for you.
A little bit of fire.
Drew, you got here just in time for first thoughts on Spider-Man Life Story. So I know you're getting woke up there, buddy. Do you have any initial thoughts on Life Story?
Yeah, I absolutely love this. I think it was masterfully done. I think that you're talking about, JB was just saying, yeah, that every nostalgia point is hit. I think that when you break down Peter Parker's continuity through, was it 60 years? Damn near 60 years of continuity into 6 issues, and everything fits, and everything is like perfectly proportioned. And the issues aren't overly bloated. They're a nice little snapshot of one story from that decade that blends everything together throughout the entire book. I thought it was great. I thought the ending was cool. I thought the way they handled the Clone Saga was really, really well done. It's just, I've got a lot of great things to say about this.
Nice. Yeah, for me,
Civil War. I mean, they hit all these major story points. It was cool.
Yeah, like I said, for me, I really enjoyed it as it was coming out. I feel like I got a little bit more from it, binge reading it basically, because obviously when it's coming out, I was reading it by the month, and I feel like some more of the pieces of the puzzle fell together better as I read all 6 issues together.
Agreed.
I agree with that a lot.
I don't think I could really grasp this and enjoy it as well as much as I did on the second time around if I had to read it month to month.
Right. Mm-hmm. So was there a particular era, or I guess in this case issue, you guys like the most? Drew, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I like the 60s. I thought that the first issue, Flash going off the war. Green Goblin revealing himself. That it was basically classic Spider-Man. And it was where this series kicked off, and where I basically said to Chad one day, I was like, "Are you reading Life Story?" And he's like, "No." I was like, "You need to be reading Life Story." And then Chad would not shut up about how good Life Story was, and how he couldn't believe I was right about something. It was a really great experience as it came out month to month, just because I didn't read issue 1 until issue 3 came out, because I didn't even know this was a thing. Like, it got like no press.
It didn't.
Mm-hmm. But it's the best Spider-Man book that I've read in a very long time.
I want to agree with Drew. I think the first issue is what had me hooked, because of how the overlying story arc of when it was happening was so important, that you're reading about with, the 60s, and, he's not getting drafted because he's in school, but he's getting out of school. He's going to an should I go? Should I not go? I mean, do I have a responsibility? Captain America's dealing with the same questions. It was really good. I liked it.
Andy?
I gotta stick with the issue 3, the 80s.
Craven.
Yeah, the Craven part. The only portion I didn't like was I could have sworn Craven was like of a Slavic background, that immigrant. And in this book, they kind of paint him as a Russian, just in like an angry Russian hunter. And I'm like, we just read Craven's Last Hunt. I could have sworn he was more of like a Slavic background, kind of an immigrant background. So just for him to be just like an angry Russian hunter, I'm like, well, that just kind of fell short for me. But that's still my favorite issue, with the black suit, with Craven.
Yeah.
And Bagley's art in that issue. That's dope.
Yeah, before I give my pick, I do want to show some of your panels, Andy, you were nice enough to upload. All of them are from that issue, so you get him exploding out of the grave once that black costume figures out that, he's been gravely injured and he's been buried alive. So we get the part where the symbiote just seeps into the grave. And if you can't have Mike Zeck, why not at least have Mark Bagley drawing the thing, and it still looks great. And except he's a little bit more venomized at this point too, in my opinion. And of course, There's him swinging through the city as well. I mean, we haven't really talked about it just yet. Mark Bagley's art. When I started collecting, it was Ultimate Spider-Man when it was coming out in the 2000s, and that's where I'm familiar with Spider-Man a lot. So I absolutely love that run, and Mark Bagley has a lot to do with me liking Spider-Man. So I really enjoyed that. But I think I agree, Andy. My favorite issue as well was the 80s. Not only do you get all this crazy stuff happening with Kraven's Last Hunt, and he's kind of dealing with the fact that I believe at this point, he's pushing into his 40s or 50s. I can't remember exactly how old he's supposed to be at this point, but he's starting to feel a little older, and Kraven's taking full advantage of that. And on top of it, he's just had twins. It actually starts off with him doing the Secret War with all the heroes and villains. And at the same time, MJ is pregnant with his twins, and Aunt May is almost in a vegetative state, unfortunately. That's one of the sadder storylines in the whole story, is just seeing Aunt May age. It's just
but everybody ages, so it's not just Spider-Man in this. In this version of Spider-Man life story, all his the Rogues Gallery ages. You know, when you get to the end, and Miles is like, "Well, it's one of your enemies." He goes, "My enemy is all dead."
Yeah.
You know,
you talk about how the heroes and the villains have all passed at that point.
Everybody is aging in the story.
Yeah.
You've got me reading this.
I'd like to change my answer for favorite issue.
Yeah, go ahead.
To the final issue.
To the final issue because of that.
Because not only that, it's like how do you work Merlin and into the story, the spider totems, like of all the things you'd think they'd leave out, right? They find a way to weave everything together. And the Miles part was really great as well. I thought that the way they handled it was fantastic. The way he went out in a blaze of glory was fantastic. It basically encapsulated Peter Parker as the character, but I think every issue did that. I think that every issue did it really, really well. And I mean, I know that if you're reading Daredevil right now, you know, and if you read 2-in-1 when it was coming out, you know that Chip Zdarsky might be one of the funniest writers that's out there right now, but also knows how to hit every single note to tug at your heartstrings. He knows how to deal with characters. He knows people. And this was really, really great. Not only is it an overview of continuity, but it's a deep dive into the personality of Peter Parker. I really dig it.
Nice. So my next question was going to be, we got all these like awesome storylines intertwined into one major life story, basically. Are there certain storylines you guys were not too thrilled that were left out? Like, for instance, for me, there was basically almost no Venom in this story. And no Venom means no Carnage. So when you got to the 90s, it was almost solely focused on the Clone Saga and going back to what they did in the 70s issue. Because what happens with the symbiote, instead of going and finding Eddie Brock and turn him into Venom, it finds Kraven, and you don't see him again for 30 years in the storyline.
Yeah.
So I was a little bummed out. You know, I'm not a huge like Venom guy, but at the same time, I feel like if you're talking 90s and Spider-Man, you almost have to be involving Venom somehow.
Thank you.
Andy, you want to go ahead?
Well, I mean, yeah, I find myself, the more I read Spider-Man, the more I dig deeper into it, the more I've come to realize that over the years as growing up, I've always been a bigger fan of the supporting cast of the Spider-Man universe than I have of actually Spider-Man. So to not have Venom in there as deeply, or to not have Venom, not have Carnage in there in that 90s issue at all, that I was like, now that you bring that up, man, that's kind of, I'm a little salty about that, to be honest.
I'm not at all. I'm going to go ahead and grab myself the ire of the collecting community when I tell you that Venom is the most superfluous, stupid fucking character that has ever existed, ever in any form, ever. Has Donny Cates done great things with him recently? Yeah. But Venom before modern era, like Venom in the 90s is really, really bad. It's really bad. It's just absolutely terrible. That's the way I feel about most McFarlane stuff. Like everybody's like, "Oh, Spawn." It's like, did you read Spawn past issue 6? It's awful. Venom is just Venom into Carnage into Scream and toxic or toxin or antitoxin and anti-venom and agent venom. It's like there are some good stories peppered throughout that, but it's just a convoluted mess of nonsense, and it waters down what's great about Spider-Man. I think when you get into the Maximum Carnage stuff, that's a Venom story. It's not a Spider-Man story. It takes so much out of Spider-Man and puts it on a supporting cast of other people. Those big giant 90s events were what they were. And I think when you take something as convoluted as the Clone Saga and you boil it down to one issue and you nail it, fuck Venom. I think that Venom is not necessary in the life story of Spider-Man. When you look at the start of his continuity to the end of it, Venom is merely a drop in the bucket, and it's like Venom's like the goth phase of Spider-Man. It's like, oh yeah, we remember that freshman year of high school when I wore all black and I had the eyeliner. Yeah, I don't do that anymore. Like it's something that should be put in the rear view. I like this whole Venom, symbiote god thing that Donny Cates is doing, where it's this big cosmic story. But before he started doing that, Venom was just dumb. I'm gonna say it. It was fucking dumb.
JB.
I forgot what the question was. The rant was so good.
I just asked if there was like a storyline you wanted to be
that I didn't get in there.
That wasn't in story.
No, I think they packed a lot into these 6 issues. There's a lot going on here. I mean, I love the little synopsis at the beginning, and I was just kind of going over in the final issue all the things that they kind of give you the whole synopsis. There's a lot of stuff that went on here, man. I think the first issue and the last issue were fantastic. There's not a storyline that I can think of that wasn't touched on that I really missed. There was maybe a couple of characters that maybe I don't think it was a single reference to maybe a Mysterio or that type of stuff. We didn't get to hear, every Rogues Gallery character. But yeah, no, I think the story was fantastic. I got no complaints. I know that there's major no love in the chat by Scott Evans, who says the absolute worst thing he's ever read, which is unbelievable. But wow.
A lot of Venom hate in the chat, but hey, it is what it is. I'm not a huge fan.
Not really. A lot of people are hating on me for hating Venom. Really,
another thing I was going to add to that though is like I think another person who kind of got done dirty and not involved near enough was Gwen Stacy.
Agreed.
Obviously, it's a pretty huge moment in Spider-Man continuity when she dies, and here it was just a random bait and switch from this crazy doctor. Like, Harry blew up the clones. Oh, by the way, that one wasn't a clone. She was standing right here. She's the clone. And then you never see her again after that. And then he immediately moves on to MJ, who chewed on his ass that same issue for not supporting Harry near as much.
Yeah.
And it's like that never happened going forward. So that was probably like my biggest criticism of the book, just his transition going from Gwen to MJ, because I just didn't care for it.
In support of that, though, I would say that when you look at Spider-Man's continuity for the last 60 years, Gwen Stacy is also a drop in the bucket. It's a very formative point in Spider-Man's point of view. But Mary Jane's his girl. I mean, everybody's like, there's a bunch of different Spider-Man girlfriends. Not really. Yeah. When you think about it, since the 70s, it's been Mary Jane and pretty much Mary Jane alone.
The thing with Gwen's death, though, is like when that happened, he blamed himself, obviously. Right. When she dies here, there is nothing like that at all. And I mean, there's doubt with Spider-Man throughout, especially because of the whole thing going on with Vietnam and that jerk Tony Stark always pushing his buttons and everything. Which, by the way, Chip Zdarsky must really hate Tony Stark. Am I right?
He does, yeah.
I think it's kind of part and parcel for how Spider-Man views Stark. What was that issue that just came out? It was the Marvels, where it's kind of just like little snapshot stories. Alex Ross was writing with other people, and there's a story about Spider-Man running out of web fluid and arguing with Mary Jane about the budget. But like the entire time
God.
Like she's like, you should go get a job working for Tony Stark. And in that issue, it's like Spider-Man just basically expresses his thoughts that Tony Stark, while maybe not exactly a bad guy, is not a good guy and does not see the world the same way that Spider-Man does. And I think that Zdarsky does a really great job of that in here as well. Like when you look at a guy like Tony Stark, who's that billionaire business magnate who can, you know, run for president and win, and, you know, has all these big billionaire abilities to, you know, affect the economy and the world. And Spider-Man's not that guy. Spider-Man's the street level guy who affects the neighborhood. He's the friendly neighborhood guy. And Tony Stark is the heartless billionaire guy. And I think drawing a line between them is important.
I don't think he just kind of called out Tony Stark, because I remember this was one of the scenes where he, you know, has that confrontation with Reed. He finally, you know, it's because it's been gnawing at him. And he finally says, you know, you have all these great inventions that you're not sharing that could just change the world, and you know why? And he calls him out on it. And I thought that was a great exchange there. And so it's not just, you know, he's calling out Stark, because when Stark tells him, hey, you know, he gives him that offer, and he goes, you know, and Peter looks at me and goes, yeah, okay, quit making weapons. That's all you had to do. And he couldn't do it.
Yeah.
You know, it always called the highest level of, you know, really, are you so great that you can't share your technology with everybody because of you make that decision? Yeah, it made you think. It was good stuff, man.
Well, that was a point in the whole series here that I really enjoyed, where what Peter's stance was on Tony versus Reed.
Mm-hmm.
You got them both on one end. You got Tony that's going to build whatever he wants to build and develop whatever he wants to develop and bring it to the world. Then there's that upheaval. There's that globalization of those products. And then you have Reed, which is like almost the polar opposite with those items, with that technology where he's reserving it. And then so you kind of get to see Peter and his feelings on both sides of that.
I just want to address the chat real quick. JLS says Felicia, Betty, Silver Sable, Gwen, MJ, Jean. He's had a lot of girlfriends. Yeah, but he's had one girl, one that's been his girl, and that's MJ. We all know that. And then Chris Barrett says, but he's really only been serious with MJ, Felicia, and Gwen. All right, first of all, Gwen was like a high school, college girlfriend. That's not serious. It's just first love. Okay, we all know that. Everybody's had that girl. When she's gone, it's like it changes you. Yeah, but she didn't really matter. And Felicia Hardy, I mean, God damn, I love me some Felicia Hardy, but she's not the kind of girl you get serious with. Come on.
You even have to follow Jessica Jones in this one out of nowhere.
Yeah, that was a surprise.
Yeah. All right, let's
get a player, man. But you know, he always comes back to MJ at the end of the day.
Let's get some more panels of the week going here. Of course, we got to show the big Secret War. You don't get a lot of Secret War. You basically just get this.
I love that panel.
And then
great
him,
panel.
Old Man Reed. That's pretty great.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff in this panel.
Yeah.
Like, there's one of my favorite Mark Bagley's for sure in this whole book. You get to see like the different versions of the characters in this compared to your normal Marvel Universe ones. Dug that moment for sure. We got the older Civil War Avengers here.
Remember, they're all aging. So yeah.
Whitebeard Luke Cage is pretty great.
Yeah, I do like Luke Cage with the white beard. And then kind of the climax of the story where it's inside Doc Ock's head. Spider-Man has to defend himself. Doc Ock brings the Sinister Six, and then Spider-Man brings every version you've seen of him so far. So you get like a 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and 2000s Spidey to help him out. So that was kind of a cool culmination toward the end of it. And then the final panel where you kind of get to see Miles and the actually, no, I'm not. That's not Miles. This is his dream sequence.
His dream,
where he saved his uncle. So it kind of leads, and Miles and MJ kind of, you know, they have the exchange of the costume, and then they cut to this like final dream sequence. So, but that was a cool way to end it for sure. All right, so I think we're about half hour into the show, so it's time to give our score. So, Andy, what do you score Spider-Man Life Story?
After the second read through, I got to give it an 8.5.
Nice. JB, you seem disappointed by an 8.5. What's yours?
I do. I'm going to go like 9.2, 9.4, 9.2, 9.4, right in there.
Drew?
9.4. It's got a little bit that's left to be desired, but the character work is amazing. Bagley's art is the best it's been in years, and the best it's been since. Man, there's very little that I find wrong with this book. Few small spine ticks, man, but it's pulling 9.4.
Nice. I think I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. Like I said, this is a blast to read. I know Marvel can sometimes introduce a gimmick and then run with it for like every single character and they burn it out. But I sincerely hope this isn't the first and last time we see this life story idea used. I definitely want to see it for like X-Men.
Daredevil would be the best.
Sure.
Yeah,
I love Zdarsky's Daredevil, and if he could write a life story for Daredevil, man, you talk about another guy with the pathos and the character moments and just the deep emotionality of his stories. Daredevil would be is like just perfect for life story. Fantastic Four would be great too because it's a family, so you get family drama over 6 issues. I think that this format could work for just about any character that's been around for a long time.
Give me Fantastic Four. I would love to see, you see the family in the 60s and they start having the kids. So you get to see Franklin and Valeria grow up too and become, big superheroes or maybe even a supervillain. Valeria's case, you never know. And throwing those future Foundation kids, you got a heck of a run you could do there with that
give me a Punisher life story then.
When is the Drew life story video coming out? That's not going to happen. But I did on the Comic Court review this life story book, so you can always go and watch that video. I'll actually probably put a link in the description after this goes live or as a recorded.
But yeah, that was we'll give the bumper one more. But yeah, that was Spider-Man life story. All right, so before we keep going,
out to the live studio audience, thanks for being here, folks.
I want to get into this chat here. We got William Bird says, "What If First Series had a great What If Heroes Aged issue with Daredevil having a final battle with Kingpin." That sounds absolutely amazing. That's a
true story.
I want. Scott Evans, man, he does not like life story. He says, "No more life story, anything ever." Chris Barrett wants Cap life story. Here you go.
Yeah.
Comics Biz Explain wants Paste Pot Pete life story. That's awesome.
He had some glue, then it was over.
What's going on, Wolf Bliss? Nice to see you in the chat tonight. We still got JLS Comics, Jesse, hanging out in the chat. Definitely check out his video series of G.I. Joe. That guy is on fire right now. If you need to know about any G.I. Joe character at all, head to JLS Comics, and most likely you will find a full video on that character. So some of my favorite videos on the internet right now. We got Phil Ailing in the chat, gives it an 8.0. Barrett, 9.4. We got the Immortal Big E Shack. What's going on, dude? He is in the chat tonight. What is going on, Big E Shack? We got JD Comics. Case Venom is an improvement on Venomized, but Venomized was a good miniseries. It was okay, but yeah, I think the Kate's Venom was the best Venom in a very long time. Southern Comic Geek, what's going on, man? Mike W. Rogers, how's it going? Agu Ramos, Gore Vidal, how you guys doing? Nice to see everybody hanging out in the chat. And as I promised earlier, we got a little bit of more Mainframe Comic Con news after I fix the comments there. So Chad dumped some names in our private chat earlier. He's like, I want some scoops on Mainframe Comic Con. So here's a couple more names for you guys. Frank Gogol, he's been making a lot of rounds on the comic community. JB, why don't you tell me about Frank Gogol? Didn't you just interview him? He's on mute.
How's your mute button working?
No, sorry. I did actually interview Frank, and he was awesome. I had him on Friday. He has been making a whirlwind tour. He was just on with Jack and Brian over at Simple Man's. I think he was on with CBSI. He's all over the place. His schedule on a regular year is unbelievable with how many cons he goes to and appearances he makes. But he's the writer of Dead End Kids, which is a cool little story. It was a 3-issue arc there by Source Point Press, and he's got another release coming out called No Heroine, which is I'm going to use Buffy the Vampire type character. She's not Buffy, but she's that type of character. And it's a cool story about a recovering drug addict there, 3 months clean, and she's got some issues, but she likes to kill vampires. It's fun, and it was fun.
Nice. So once again, go to Mainframe Comic Con. The link is down below. Shout out to Chuck Loader Comics. Man, this guy is putting together one heck of an experience for you guys on the 25th and 26th. Our friends of the Chumpcast, we got a chance to interview last Friday on Comic Core Roundtable. They're doing a lot of legwork as well. So once again, Mainframe Comic Con link is down below. Without further ado, guys, we got a lot of movies we need to talk about. So what movies are you guys looking forward to? I gave you guys an inkling of an idea of the movies in 2012. And actually, instead of just asking, we got to get right into this list. Avengers, the movie of Faceless Generation, right? JB, what'd you think of Avengers, man? Did I even need to explain what this movie is?
I know. I think it was a complete game changer for it. I think the build up to this, and then it did not disappoint, in my opinion. You saw that they were putting to get something together with that first Iron Man, and then here came the Thor, and we're gonna build up to this story, and man, it delivered. I thought it was a home run. And it was, when they say blockbuster, is there any definition of blockbuster? This started a chain of blockbuster after blockbuster after blockbuster. So yeah, huge.
Drew, I know this one's exciting for you.
Yeah, but upon rewatch, it's a little bit bloated. There's a lot of moving parts, and it's one of those movies that you didn't know that it would be so hard to get it right. But he nailed it. I think that Whedon put everything together. The pieces might have been a little bit clunky, but the full picture of the puzzle comes together pretty well. And every character really gets a chance to shine, except for Hawkeye. Hawkeye's kind of done dirty, but he does get his comeuppance in Age of Ultron, the sequel. The way that they dealt with the Hulk in this was really great. Having him spaz on the helicarrier was fantastic. The live action splash panel, the first time you ever felt like you were watching a comic book, was during that Chitauri fight, when they just go from fight to fight, kind of a no-cut camera trick, as a full of special effects. But just seeing the Avengers fight side by side, doing team-up maneuvers, hitting Tony Stark's power beams off of the shield to ricochet to some other, alien creature from behind. The Hulk taking down that giant living Chitauri ship. There's so much to love about this movie, and that doesn't even cover all of the quips, which Whedon is well known for. But doth mother knoweth you weareth her drapes is just one of my favorite things ever.
Puny God.
I can't tell you how many times I've called somebody a mewling quim. It's just absolute greatness.
Andy?
It does a lot to set up the next 8 years worth of movies. I enjoyed it tremendously. And out of our list tonight, this is the box office winner at a little over 1.5 billion. Billion.
The
only thing that comes close to that is Avengers Age of Ultron. Everything else is well under that.
Yeah. Go ahead.
That says something.
Yeah, for me, I don't think it's aged the greatest in the world. I kind of agree with Drew, but at the same time, this movie's kind of in a category for me like Batman 1989, Ninja Turtles 1990, and X-Men 2000, where it's almost more about going into the movie theater, sitting down, enjoying seeing these characters all together on the big screen. And in this case, it was like you get to see all these guys teamed up for the first time ever. And like Drew said, that part where it's almost like a splash page comic book panel on the screen, that was worth that whole movie. Plus, hey, Joss Whedon, can't go wrong there, in my opinion. Well, maybe he can in the last movie we talk about tonight, but I mean, this was an experience. It wasn't just the movie. It was just about the movie-going experience, seeing this one. So next up, here's an interesting one not a lot of people talk about anymore, but I think is vastly underrated. Dredd 3D with Carl Urban.
Excuse me?
Dredd. Judge Dredd.
Well, that's what I said to Steve earlier. I'm like, what?
You guys hadn't seen this movie? Drew, have you seen
It's great.
3D?
No.
It's great. It's pretty fantastic. It's like it's Judge Dredd in like one giant apartment building in the future, just blowing shit up and killing people. It doesn't have the campy, colorful, wonderful comedy of Stallone and Judge Dredd, which it kind of feels like it's missing something because I love that movie so much, even though it's not that good. But I remember it as a kid, and when I think Judge Dredd, I think colorful at a certain point. Rob Schneider, but I really, really dug this movie, and it didn't get as much love as it really, really should have.
No, it took home less than they paid to make it.
Yeah, that's why there's not a sequel. A lot of people want a sequel, but it'd be a waste of money, unfortunately. But yeah, this one, like, imagine you got bad guy Lena Headey on the top floor. You have on the bottom floor getting started 2 judges, one of them Judge Dredd, and he needs to get to the top floor to dispense justice. That's the movie, basically. He needs to go to the top of this building, more or less, and he's just destroying people left and right, trying to get to Lena Headey, who's like this big drug kingpin.
It's like Judge Dredd meets The Raid.
Yeah, or like even a little bit of Die Hard thrown in there too.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
But yeah, this is we didn't really talk about this in any of the other installments of the movie era, but this kind of like in the middle of the big 3D boom. So this was even made specifically with 3D in the title. So a lot of the movies we're going to talk about tonight were basically made almost for 3D, except for this next one, of course, which I didn't get to do my impression last time. So the next movie we're talking about, The Dark Knight Rises, my brothers. Did you go see The Dark Knight Rises? That's
Dark Knight Rises.
Part 2, not part 3.
Sorry, Rises. It's in here.
Drew, did you see The Dark Knight Rises?
I did see The Dark Knight Rises, and when you talk about bucket of disappointment, it's a bucket of disappointment. It's not to say it's not a good movie. It's just as an installment in that trilogy, it's just not the appropriate end. You can tell that there are parts in the script that were supposed to be the Joker when the original that actually came out. I think it might have been in the commentary that Heath Ledger's Joker was supposed to be the one judging everybody, not Scarecrow. And Bane, I think Tom Hardy did a good job with a weird voice. But I thought that the character design on Bane was just off in a lot of ways. The Joseph Gordon-Levitt inclusion was like supposed to be like an Easter egg for the fans, but it wasn't great. There's a lot I like about this. I like the Talia al Ghul angle. But beyond that, it's like it's a really great dance routine for 2 installments that ends with a ta-da and a fart, It could have been so much better. But then again, it's masterfully shot. It's a beautiful movie. I'm just really nitpicky because of how great the first 2 installments were.
Yeah, for me, like, I love Batman Begins and I love Dark Knight. I think they're on the same echelon for me. I like them both. Dark Knight Rises is almost kind of like, if you're talking the original Star Wars trilogy, this is almost like it's Return of the Jedi, in my opinion. A lot of great things happen in this movie, a lot of great camera shots and everything. But instead of being like great quality all the way through, some of the greatness is just the comedy for me. I'm sorry. Bane, I can't get enough Bane in my life. Tom Hardy's Bane just cracks me up every time he talks. Makes me laugh, especially when he's like, "You think the darkness is your friend? I was born," and then he tries to break his back.
You merely have adopted the darkness.
He's like throwing grenades at him. And then old Catwoman. I don't know if I still haven't decided if I like Catwoman in this movie. She's wishy-washy most of the time. She looks great in the role. I'll give her that, of course. I'm not blind. The Talia al Ghul stuff I didn't care for. That just seemed very forced to me. I think that was the weakest aspect of the entire movie. But I didn't mind Joseph Gordon-Levitt. I think, that's Christopher Nolan. That's one of his guys he always likes to use. So any excuse to work him in.
Thought the way that they utilized him at the end, they were like, "Oh, he's Robin." Like, no, that was dumb.
Yeah, I agree. JB?
I'm going to disagree with you guys. I thought it wrapped up the series great. I enjoyed the hell out of it.
Yeah.
I was looking forward to it. I saw it in the theater. The first night it came out, and I came out of it going, man, that was kind of cool. So that's me. I gotta go ahead and just blow it all up. And honestly, when it came to Bane, I didn't really know what because we make up the stuff in our head. I didn't watch the cartoons, so I didn't have a Bane voice in my head to go with it. So when everyone started making fun of it, I was like, "Ooh, maybe he wasn't very good in that role, but it seemed pretty good to me."
It was just hard to understand him. I thought that the affectation they put on his voice should have just been more clear. Just like, but there's so much Yoda. So much I love about it. I love Doug Benson's Bane that he would do on his podcast all the time. That he actually got hired to play Bane in Lego Batman. And
that was Doug Benson.
Yeah, it's Doug Benson.
Wow.
Yeah, and the way Bane talks in this informs the way Bane talks in the Harley Quinn cartoon, which is probably my favorite Bane thing ever. That's pretty great. But it's just like when he's like, crossing this plane with no survivors. It's like he talks like a cartoon in a very serious movie, and it's like it's pretty great. But at the same time, it's not.
Bear Island's killed me in the chat right now. Anyway, Andy, any thoughts?
I've never been able to actually watch the movie. Now that's on TV and other avenues, downloads, whatever. You click it, you play it, and I find myself playing on my iPad, reading a comic book or doing something else, and it just never captures my attention throughout the whole movie. So I've never finished it. I've only caught bits and pieces of quips here. Most of it is when Bane talks, I look up and I start giggling. I mean, that's where I'm at with that. Sorry, JB.
All right. My last note before we move on: Hans Zimmer's score in that movie, one of my favorite ever. I think he did phenomenal.
But that score built over the 3 films and kind of had an opportunity to
but you had like become the chance.
Yeah, it had an opportunity to kind of evolve and become something a little bit more. Just because he had 3 films to build these themes and have it all come together. I think the score is great. Yeah, I have nothing bad to say about that.
Amazing Spider-Man. Andrew Garfield's take on Amazing Spider-Man is next. So, Drew, what'd you think of this kind of like middle brother / middle sister of the Spider-Man franchise here?
Andrew Garfield is by far the worst Peter Parker we've ever seen on screen.
Thank you.
He's a good Spider-Man. The quips, the jokes, the special effects on the Spider-Man stuff are pretty good. I'm going to say that. But he's too confident as Peter Parker. He doesn't understand the character of Peter Parker. So that all falls flat. They were all talking about how great the romance between him and what's her name, that cute but flat ass girl. Yeah, Emma Stone, that chick with the flat ass. Look, Andy, you settle down. An ass is important. I don't want to have to explain that here, but
it's very important.
Their chemistry together was terrible. I did not enjoy it. I thought that them kind of being like at each other the entire time was really dumb. Dennis Leary was good in the movie as Captain Stacy. The problem is that the Lizard was not great, and the CG on the Lizard at the end, like in the dark, was absolutely terrible. Anytime that he was like in the light fighting, like, oh, that looks pretty good. Anytime he was in the dark, they couldn't get the lighting right. The CG just looks bad. It stands out on screen in the way that like a Resident Evil 1 stands out. And then it's too late in the movie making process in this decade for us to have such terrible CG in a big budget movie. Did not like it.
JB?
Hated it. I really did. I mean, it was one of the few times that I came out of the theater going, man, I was disappointed. I did not like him in that role. I didn't like how he played either Peter or Spider-Man. And there's something that just rubbed me wrong about him. That's not the Peter that I read. It's not, and plus, it wasn't the Peter that I had just saw in the last set of films. You know, I'll be honest with you, I kind of dug him. He was fun.
JB likes a familiar Peter. Just remember.
Yeah, I want the familiar Peter. The familiar Peter. And looking back on it now that you've seen him, you're right. He was the worst one so far that's played Peter, in my opinion. You guys disagree?
I don't think he was the worst Spider-Man. I think Tobey Maguire was the worst Spider-Man. But I thought,
come on,
those scripts that the Tobey Maguire scripts did not service Spider-Man the way that you want Spider-Man to be. He wasn't quipping. He wasn't funny. He wasn't actively all over the place. A lot of that has to do with the CG quality back then, but more to do with the script than anything else. But I thought that Tobey was a great Peter Parker, whereas Andrew Garfield was the worst Peter Parker. That guy was not Peter Parker. He didn't have the Parker luck. He didn't have the Parker nerdyisms. Nothing good there.
Keep your strange Peters away from me, okay?
Yeah, well, some strange Peters, but not all.
Thank God there's no Nightwing movie. Anyway, Andy, any more thoughts on Amazing Spider-Man?
Yeah, Peter jokes aside,
that would have been good. Franco,
we all know I love a good Peter joke. When they slapped Andrew Garfield's name on that, they lost me. I stopped paying attention before the movie even came out and didn't even go see it. Drew makes some interesting points that make me want to watch it, regardless of how much I might like or not like it. You draw my attention to make me want to educate myself. But yeah, they lost me with Andrew Garfield. Just his name and just his style of acting, I didn't feel like it was going to fit at all.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I didn't think it was as bad as Spider-Man 3 from the Maguire trilogy, but I didn't think it was too much better. I mean, it was just mundane was its problem. When you think Spider-Man, you think like the cream of the crop at Marvel. And when it comes to this movie, it could have been a decent building block for something more. But we'll get into the next one here in a second. So I'm going to keep trucking along. I don't know if anyone's seen this movie. I hadn't. I didn't care about the first one, so I watched the second one. Ghost Rider: Spirit of Vengeance. So
better than the first one.
Really?
Yeah, it's still terrible. I mean, but
no.
Terrible in a great way. Like,
okay.
Yeah, it's Nicolas Cage at his peak. Okay, it's like Wicker Man, Nicolas Cage. It's not.
Peak?
Yeah, he's got peaks and valleys. Like every other day, he's on a different plateau. That's what's great about Nicolas Cage. But Spirit of Vengeance has really cool action scenes and really good special effects, which is surprising for the budget that it has. I, again, wouldn't take the time to rewatch this, but if you haven't seen it and it's on deep cable and you're not doing anything and maybe you're a little baked up, it won't be a bad time.
No.
All right. So going into 2013, here's a couple I hadn't seen. I'll probably throw them out there together if you guys have even seen either one. R.I.P.D. The Rest in Peace Department, starring Jeff Bridges and Ryan Reynolds.
No.
And Red 2. So a sequel to Red.
No.
Anybody?
I enjoyed Red 2. More of the same. R.I.P.D. No, I'm sorry. I didn't watch it.
Didn't see it.
All right. Here's a controversial one. Well, we're going to spend a little bit of time, I'm sure, on this one, Drew.
Uh-oh.
Man of Steel.
Ooh.
Man of Steel is a fantastic movie. The characters are well served.
Look at Carson.
The story arc is well crafted. The action is out of this world. The problem with Man of Steel is it's not about Superman. The writers and the director have no idea who Superman is, what his character is, what his motivations are. But as far as an action film that stands on its own, it's pretty darn good. I think it's one of the better movies that the DC EU produced, starting with Man of Steel era. I think that they kind of went downhill from there when they started building the continuity off of a movie that really had nothing to do with the main character of the movie. And if you don't know Superman, I'm sure this is an enjoyable film. If you know Superman only tangentially, I'm sure that you really enjoy this. But character-wise, right, even though these characters are all well fleshed out, and have reasons for their motivations. Those motivations do not match any comic book continuity ever. They don't match any cartoon representation of Superman in any way, shape, or form. He flies and he's strong and he shoots lasers out of his eyes. That's the only part about this movie that is Superman. The rest of it is a totally different guy altogether. If you're looking at it as an Elseworld story, kind of a Red Sun kind of deal, then I can see it being enjoyable. But to make this your main continuity for Superman, it's just a pile of poo, in my opinion. So you take this great movie that was a lot of fun to watch, but if you watch it through the lens of somebody who knows this character, you're going to sit there banging your head against the wall saying, why would they do that? Why would they do this? Why would they do that? They got these awesome Kryptonian fight scenes. I mean, the one thing I will say is that Amy Adams as Lois Lane might be the worst casting in the history of movies. She's fucking awful.
Oh, man.
This sounds perfect.
This episode is going to have so many hot takes for you to choose from, Drew. Holy moly.
JB, you were holding it up earlier.
I was holding up. Okay, so now you mentioned it. When I first saw this, and Elseworld is exactly what I was thinking about when I was watching this. I'm thinking, what the hell story is this? This is completely different. Okay. I actually enjoyed the hell out of this movie until the end. Very similar to like Wonder Woman. When you get to that last battle, it just lost. Come on, man. Now it's getting crazy stupid.
Yeah, but at least the last battle in this movie was exciting.
But it was
just Professor Lupin floating
crazy,
in the air.
And I don't know. That's Superman does go. I can't. I don't know. I don't want to spoiler anyone that didn't see it, but he done snaps his neck, and that's not the Superman I know.
Andy,
this sounds perfect for that 6 a.m. TBS airing when I'm trying to make my coffee.
Nice. I Drew, you rein me in toward the end of your hot take where you basically put it perfectly, in my opinion. Solid action movie, but if you know anything about Superman, you'd probably be put off by the movie in general. I think that's a really good statement on the movie, actually. I disagree about Amy Adams. I thought she could have made a great Lois had the franchise kept going.
Yeah, she could have if she was a different actress with a different role play.
Whatever. I thought she was good.
As a brunette, for Christ's sake. She's a brunette. Stop changing these things.
I'm going to call a timeout. I'm going to call a timeout here, Drew. You just said it's a great action movie. It's not about Superman. But the thing you're nitpicking the most is the hair color of Lois Lane in this?
No, there's a lot of reasons why I hate her portrayal of Lois Lane, but that's just like issue number one. Dye her hair, give her a wig, whatever you want to do, but make her look like freaking Lois Lane. Come on.
And we'll move on from Lois. I think this movie just overstayed its welcome. It should have been cut down by at least a half an hour. I think it would have flowed better as an action movie if it wasn't like, what was the runtime on this? I think 2.5 hours. Should have been a solid 2 hours maximum. I know when you think Superman, especially like 1978, Richard Donner, you have to have this big epic masterpiece. No, you don't necessarily have to. Like if you sit there and watch almost 3 hours of punching and kicking, you kind of get burned out after a while.
I did. The final fight, I was burned out. I'm like, when is this going to end already?
Exactly.
How many buildings are they going to destroy?
Yeah, when Metropolis is absolutely leveled and there's nobody to have a sequel with.
Exactly. So that's the main thing. Like, it got me mad about Superman toward the end. It's just like, not only did he end up snapping Zod's neck, which I'll spoil it. I don't care. I just to warn people for that. Yeah. That's not the best movie in the world. Unless you're the Boyard 7. He's loving it in the chat, which good on you, man. I'm glad that someone did enjoy this movie. It got them into the character. But not only did he not defend Metropolis, he had basically wiped it off the face of the planet. So almost like it's ridiculous. So I did leave the movie a little bit angry, and I can't not mention Kevin Costner's performance of Jonathan Kent. I thought he did great until, nope, son, I'm going to die in this tornado. So you're protected. So I'm still kind of, I understand really that scene a little bit better, but at the same time, that's just dumb. Like Superman, he would have found a way, but
that's found a way to save him and hide his identity at the same time.
Exactly. So we'll move on because we could talk about this for the rest of the show. Iron Man 3. JB, what'd you think of Iron Man 3?
Refresh my memory. Is this the one with the guy with the whips?
No,
that was 2.
No. This is the Christmas movie with Extremis.
Oh, yes, that twist one. No, I didn't like it. No, yeah, at that point, very similar to, when you get to the third movie of a set, you're like, God, you guys are pushing, you're trying too hard. I felt like you were trying too hard with that movie. That's my take on it. Didn't like it. Next.
I disagree. I think that this movie is underappreciated, both as an MCU movie and an Iron Man movie. And also, it's a Shane Black movie. It's a Shane Black movie. It takes place during Christmas. If you enjoy Shane Black, you'll enjoy this movie. I think that they didn't go so far. Like,
this is the one with the fake, the fake guy who's not even
fake
really
Mandarin. Yeah, which is a brilliant bait.
Yes,
I love it. Mandarin in this is really great. The character, they find him and he's just this drunk actor. That's freaking phenomenal. People hate on that because they wanted this big Mandarin story. I thought this really worked, man. The Extremis story really worked as far as the villains that were kind of faceless, but at the same time had to them. We got Stark out of the suit for part of the movie. The end where it's the army of Iron Man suits and he's jumping from suit to suit is a fantastic scene. Really great action. This movie's well written, and like you said, when a trilogy hits its apex, you get something super bloated like Dark Knight Rises that kind of misses the mark. Mm-hmm. Whereas Iron Man 3 was kind of a step back and a character introspection that did have some cool action scenes when he builds the gauntlet so he can kind of infiltrate the bad guys and take them down without having his suit while he's waiting for his suit to come to him for that big climax at the end. I thought this movie was really good. It's my second favorite Iron Man movie. The first one's better, but this is 10 times better than Iron Man 2.
Yes, thank you.
As far as the structure of the film, the script, and the way that the characters work, and the fact that the end credit sequence is that Tony is just telling this story to Bruce Banner as his therapist, and Banner's just like, I don't know what you want me to tell you, and that's at the end of the movie. Yeah, he fell asleep. It's really good. I enjoyed it. I think that you guys need to check it out. The thing that I didn't like is when Pepper Potts got all burned up Extremis style, and then she came back, her clothes were still there. Do some creative covering, but if everything else burned up, I'm pretty sure her sports bra would have burned up as well. Just thought. I don't need to see naked Gwyneth. I'm just saying, use some creative way of making that happen. That's the one thing. Yeah. YouTube is 990s in the house.
Oh yeah, drink it in, man.
How you doing, man?
Drink that in, folks.
Drink it in.
So next up,
Get rude.
We've got here's another sequel. Some people call it underrated. Some people think it's the worst in the MCU. Thor: Dark World. Andy, do you have any thoughts on Dark World?
I enjoyed watching it, but I feel like it is the last finisher in that race of Thor movies, if you will. That's my opinion. I don't know where you guys sit on that at all. We really didn't talk about any of these at all before the show. I feel like it underperformed, but I did enjoy watching it at least. The Thor series is the series we watch in our household every weekend. When they play all the movies, we will watch all of them before any of the other Marvel movies, really.
Drew?
I love Thor: The Dark World. It's one of, I think, the most rewatchable MCU movies. I put it above a lot of movies that people will absolutely cherish and be mad at me for ranking them above. But you get Thor's world fleshed out in a way that we hadn't seen yet, in a way that services the entire cosmic MCU. And a lot of people are like, oh, Guardians of the Galaxy. Actually, Thor: The Dark World opened things up for Guardians of the Galaxy. Things didn't get weird and cosmic until Thor: The Dark World. We got the history of Asgard. We went into all the realms. We saw the life tree. We got an epic villain in Malekith that was a threat to Thor. It was interesting in my mind. People say it's boring. That movie's action packed. It never stops.
Yeah.
Just keeps going and going and going. The Berserker showing up, that was great. So you got so much in there that makes it one of those films for me that I'll keep going back to. People are always like, "Oh, Thor: The Dark World," and Iron Man 3. Now they're mid-tier Marvel movies, guys. There's really movies out there that are worse in the Marvel pantheon, like Black Panther or Captain America: The First Avenger, or like these are movies that are not on par. But man, to show my love for Iron Man 3 and Thor: The Dark World within like a 5-minute span, I'm very excited to be on this show, guys.
All I know is it still has Cat P. Break Dennings in it. So, yeah.
It was better than the first Thor, which I hated. The first Thor was terrible, in my opinion. And I'll be honest with you, I've seen Natalie Portman's work, or her other work, and it's way better than what she's been given in this. I feel like she's just it's not good in any of these Thor movies.
She's kind of just there.
She's just kind of there. She's just.
We'll see what happens.
She's such a good actress in her other work, and then you look in these Thor movies, and you're like, she sucks, man.
Bump on a log.
I watched the Star Wars prequels, so she seems really great in anything next to that.
Yeah. Well.
Anakin, you're breaking my heart. She died of a broken heart. Anyway, going on. Kick-Ass 2 is next. The movie that Jim Carrey disavowed because of violence.
What?
He was in it. So Kick-Ass 2. Did anyone
not as good as the first one, but thoroughly enjoyable and a lot of fun.
I agree.
Rocked.
Not too much else to say about that, in my opinion. I mean, Jim
Less
Carrey's
Nicolas
fun.
Cage makes for a worse movie. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, you got McLovin in there being the main bad guy. What can you do with that? Anyway, I want to keep going here because we still got a lot to cover in a little bit of time. The Wolverine. The Wolverine. No. I didn't think I want to go first on this one. I didn't think this movie was that bad. I think it gets a lot of hate, kind of like
The Wolverine.
I thought he was looking at me like, "What in the hell?"
Well, The Wolverine is is that the
middle
second
one
one?
of the yes.
So it's
That's
not
the Silver
Origin.
Samurai mech movie.
The Silver Samurai mech movie.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that actually.
Yeah.
I did enjoy that.
I think it was fun. The Japan stuff I thought was well done.
Yeah.
I kind of like seeing Famke Janssen back as Jean Grey, even though it was in like dream states and in his head. I enjoyed that part. I enjoyed Yukio. I thought she was a great character. And if it was for a last second change, we almost got the yellow costume in this movie.
True.
So it's actually in the deleted
It was revealed
scenes,
at the end, right?
And instead of us getting the yellow costume in this movie, we got random ass ninjas who he didn't really fight. He was mostly running away from.
Yeah, just getting shot up by him.
Yeah, this movie isn't awful. It's watchable, but it constantly reminds you that it could be so much better if they just took that one step farther in each scene. And when you finally get to Old Man Logan and he's popping claws and stabbing dudes in the head, if you had 2 scenes where he stabbed a dude in the head in this movie, it would have raised it at least 3 number grades, in my opinion. The Silver Samurai stuff was fun. I liked it. I didn't think it was terrible. The mech thing at the end, the CG was a little bit wonky, but beyond that, I thought it was a good solution to put it into a movie. But the whole, I'm losing my healing factor, we're on the run, I'm staring at this young Japanese girl for 8 hours. Like it's slow and not interesting for the most part. It's just a Wolverine on the run movie is not what I want. Wolverine should not be running away from his problems. He should be berserker raging through his problems, especially when he gets to the point where, there's no turning back. And like, you see him like running around and being shot with a bunch of arrows by ninjas. And it's just like, dude, turn around and cut their heads off. Like, just turn around and cut their freaking heads off. I don't know. It was just a disappointment.
Andy?
Yeah, my favorite part of the movie was the very beginning. The idea of Logan.
I agree with that.
1940s World War II Japanese POW
so cool.
camp, where he saves that one Japanese soldier, shielding him from the blast. That point on, the movie kind of just the first half of the movie I liked. The second half, I was like, I felt like I had to finish it because I was committed at that point.
Well, here's another interesting X Universe movie, Days of Future Past. Andy, did you check that one out?
I did not.
Oh,
I did not
JB.
That one.
Yeah, Days of Future Past. I've seen them. I've seen them all. I'm trying to remember this one specifically. This is the first time they introduced the younger versions of the characters, right?
No, that was First Class. This is the one where you get both casts.
Oh, where they meshed the classes. And Phoenix at the end? Was this the Phoenix at the end? I can't remember.
No,
they all meshed together.
Drew.
I want to watch this one now.
This is my least favorite of all the X-Men universe movies.
Wow.
I would rather watch Wolverine Origin. It's more fun. I would rather watch Apocalypse. More stuff happens. I would rather watch First Class. The characters are better. This is touted as like the best of the X-Men movies. It's not. Tyrion Lannister's in this movie as a Trask for no reason whatsoever.
Now I remember this one. Yeah.
Right? This is a Mystique movie that doesn't need to be. There's a couple of cool scenes in it, but it was supposed to be the movie that tied the continuities together and made everything work. And guess what? It didn't. It screwed the pooch on that, to the point where Deadpool had to come in eventually and be like, screw this, I'm fixing things, but just going through my end credits and erasing people. That this movie is not good. It's just not good. There's not enough X-Men action in it. The best part, it happens in the future with like Blink and Bishop fighting Sentinels, and it's like 2 minutes. And then it's like, oh, well, let's go back in time and be boring. Let's be a boring Wolverine movie with Mystique in it.
I thought this one, I feel like this is the last one where we actually got to see them having fun making a movie. I definitely enjoyed, like, you know, Wolverine in the 70s with, you know, not Fassbender, Magneto was in it, of course, but, you know, the newer version of Professor X, James McAvoy. I thought those two were pretty good together. And then Beast wasn't too bad. At least, you know, you got to see Blue Furry Beast, even though he had this like gimmick where he got to change in between them for whatever reason. But I did enjoy that. I don't know if they made up a power for Kitty though, to like, so they could make the whole plot work. I didn't really like that part, but anytime you get Ian McKellen and Patrick Stewart in the same movie, I'm in. That they always do excellent work together. So you get to see them, and then you get to see the two Xaviers meet through the mind of Logan. And I thought that was probably the best part of the movie for me, where he's like, Charles, I need you to hope again. So I thought that was really cool. But yeah, and overall, I really enjoyed this movie. I think it was the last decent X-Men movie, period. Next up, though, a not decent movie. We spent a lot of time talking about Amazing Spider-Man. It surprised me, and about how much we didn't like that one. What did you guys think of Amazing Spider-Man Part 2?
Better than you remember it.
No, it's not.
It is.
No,
it is.
Okay.
It's better than you remember it. It's better than the first Amazing Spider-Man.
Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Should I just keep going?
Remember this. I gotta remember.
Jamie Foxx as Max Shreck is terrible. Man. Max is terrible, but but Electro is not bad.
This is bad.
Electro
this was
fun.
Bad. This was bad.
It's better than the first one. Far and away.
This is bad. Yeah.
Far and away better than the first one.
That
Paul
Rhino.
Giamatti,
That Rhino.
Paul Giamatti though was great.
He was great.
He was great. The Rhino is terrible.
Paul Giamatti was great. Terrible. The Goblin in this was it was terrible. That was terrible.
The Goblin in that's better than the Goblin in the first Spider-Man movies.
So, like, we just ate some bad cheese. We're gonna move on to some Listerine mouthwash and cleanse our palate. Captain America: Winter Soldier. JB, you got any thoughts on Winter Soldier?
Drew's probably gonna say, "Yeah, I'm not." This was one of the best ones, man. I think this one stood on its own. Winter Soldier was one of the best Marvel movies they had made up until this point. It's still one of my favorites. It still has one of my absolute favorite scenes, the elevator scene. So no, the home run. One of my top picks. One of my top Marvel movies.
I can't disagree. I'll take Thor Ragnarok over this movie any day. But at the same time, I think that the way that they produced this movie, the vibes of this movie are absolutely dead on to what the story is. You get great Easter eggs like Arnim Zola. There's so much in here. You finally get the first mention of Doctor Strange is in here. Falcon shows up, that's a character that has really become important to the MCU.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And I'm really excited for when they finally release Black Widow, which is supposed to be happening soon, because when I watch that trailer, I get Winter Soldier vibes from the entire thing. So I think that it's definitely in the top 5 of comic book movies of all time, in my opinion.
Andy, any thoughts on it?
I'm torn on it. I don't hate it. I don't love it till the end of the world, but Sebastian Stan, I felt like they could have done better. I don't really care for him in that role, to be honest with you. And that's the kind of one of the hangups that I have when constantly watching him. I just kind of don't care about him in that role at all.
I think for me on this one, like, you know, you had Avengers in 2012. I think 2014 was the year that like MCU came through and like, we're serious business, guys. They had a 1-2 punch this year that like it pretty much brought us into that like Infinity War Endgame level. And this was the start of that, in my opinion, with the Russo brothers. So the Russo brothers, like their history of directing was like Arrested Development episodes.
Yeah.
And then somehow they go from Arrested Development to The Winter Soldier. Yeah, exactly. So I almost went from like a comedy background to like this like cool crime thriller that takes place in the MCU. And I mean, I think this is top 5 MCU right here for me. I think they did an excellent job. I did not like the first Captain America that much at all. I think I've only seen it like maybe twice because I just don't want to rewatch that movie again. But I could rewatch this one all day. I think, especially if you've read the Ed Brubaker Captain America, which I think Gore Vidal was talking about in the chat. I think they read Brubaker Cap, and then this is what the film result was. So I think it's an absolutely stellar film. Next up, we'll probably just talk about this one really quick. 300 Rise of an Empire. Did anyone actually remember this movie happening?
Yes.
Nope, never saw it.
You never saw 300?
No, I saw 300. I didn't see the sequel, Rise of the Empire.
This is the Rise of the Empire? No, never saw it.
So it's worth seeing. Eva Green, thumbs up. Andy, any thoughts?
I never saw it.
All right. Eva Green, thumbs up. Trust me. She's in the first Bond movie.
Was this more about the battle on the water?
I think so. Yes, it was. They're on boats. Yes. I saw it one time. I barely remember it. Kind of like the next movie.
Has a lot more than 300 soldiers. I don't know why it's called 300.
So this also comes along with another movie, which I think waited too long to make a sequel. Sin City: A Dame to Kill For.
Ooh, didn't see it.
They waited so long to make a sequel that I forgot about it and never heard about the sequel. So I never.
Exactly.
This movie is not bad, but the wonderfulness of the first Sin City was pretty much in the format in which they made it, the style in which they utilized, and to be honest, by the time Sin City 2 came out, that style that was so cutting edge was dated. It's just
you nailed it right there.
It had been done to death by lesser properties, and it just didn't have the same luster that it did before.
I think it was not to mention gap, by the way, between sequels.
The stories in Sin City 2 are not nearly as compelling as the stories in the first Sin City.
All right, next up, I guess this one's going to be all me. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the Michael Bay return of TMNT. They had such success with Transformers, they decided to bring the Turtles back to Hollywood. I didn't like the look of the Turtles. They had noses. It was weird. However, the movie is okay. It's not, I think a lot of people trash it. I don't think it's worth trashing per se. I think there's a pretty awesome moment where they just personify the Turtles. It's when they're riding up the elevator to go to the final fight on the fight of the skyscraper. And they're just kind of standing there, and all of a sudden Mikey's like, and they just start going into like this big like rap basically. And I mean that was a pretty turtle moment. So it did have a couple of highlights. Megan Fox's April O'Neil was not a highlight at all. Joe Bluth from Arrested Development, I was really looking forward to him. He wasn't funny in this movie. He was kind of annoying. So Turtles, you can take it or leave it. It's probably worth seeing once if you're a huge Turtle fan. But I want to get into the next one. We're going to spend a little bit of time on this next one, I have a feeling. Guardians of the Galaxy, the second punch of the 1-2 punch. JB, go ahead.
I think this is a game changer because when you first heard they were doing a movie of Guardians of the Galaxy, I'm thinking, what? You're doing what?
Yeah.
I mean, these are B-list characters if you were ever going to name a set of characters B-list. And they nailed it. You know why they nailed it? I think that part of the reason was that soundtrack. The soundtrack, the story, the humor. This was fun. I enjoyed it. I was all in after this. I wanted more. Guardians of the Galaxy was fantastic, in my opinion.
Andy?
I'm with JB. I thought this movie was fantastic. I love Chris Pratt in his role. I love Michael Rooker in his role. Bradley Cooper, Vin Diesel, Dave Bautista. It fits. I really don't know what to say without going back and rewatching it and doing a full show just on this movie. I loved it.
The raccoon was awesome, man. It was freaking awesome in this movie.
I remember having a conversation with one of my normie friends. He was like, "Oh man, that Marvel ride was fun, but now they're making a movie with a tree and a raccoon." And like, I'm not going to go see that. I looked at his face and I said, "You're absolutely wrong. You're wrong. This movie is going to blow up. There's going to be stuffed Rocket Raccoon dolls all over the stores." He said, "I don't see it." I said, "Well, you're wrong." And once again, folks, I was right. And the way that Thor: The Dark World opened up the doors to the cosmic universe, James Gunn came in, kicked those doors down, and spread right through them and expanded everything that he wanted to do, made his own Star Wars inside of the Marvel universe. The soundtrack was on point. The dialogue was fantastic. The acting was really good. The Stan Lee cameo was hilarious. The way that they put this band of thieves together and had them break out of prison together was great. And the surprise of all surprises, Drax the Destroyer.
Yes.
Batista, one of the worst professional wrestlers in the history of professional wrestling, is a damn fine actor.
Yeah.
He couldn't even perform his own move, a sit-out powerbomb, properly. But for some reason, him as Drax, I could just watch endlessly.
Yep.
Yeah, maybe the most well casted of all of the movies by far, and one of the most it's probably the most rewatchable MCU movie there is. I mean, like I had a conversation with a friend as well, Drew, and basically he was just like, how do we live in a world where they're putting Rocket Raccoon on the big screen before Wonder Woman? And it was absolutely the right decision. I mean, it was their biggest breakout hit in my opinian, because Cap, Iron Man,
bigger than that. How do you nail Rocket Raccoon
exactly? Yeah,
before you can get Superman right. Like, I mean, an iconic character like Superman.
Yeah,
DC and Warner Brothers can't seem to get their shit together, but C-list cosmic throwaway character from an Incredible Hulk run that gets put on a cosmic team of like Suicide Squad style, like pirates, and you nail it. Come on, they nailed it.
All right, let's wrap this up by going into 2015. The 2015 is probably one of the smaller years in the 2010s. Kingsman, Secret Service. Anyone care about Kingsman?
I enjoyed Kingsman.
I enjoyed it. I thought it was great.
Go ahead.
I watched it. I thought the whole story was fantastic. You know, just the secret society, and I think they told the story really well, man. The kid that played, the lead kid, he was good. Now he's gone on to do some other stuff, right? What else has he done?
He was just Elton John in that biopic.
Yeah, he was just Elton John. That kid is fantastic. I had a good time with that. It was fun. It was fun.
Fantastic cast, fantastic action. Was it Mark Millar again?
Yeah, it's Mark Millar.
Yeah, it was fun.
Next one, I gotta get this one started. I've been saving my rant all night for this one.
There you go.
Fantastic Four, the reboot. This may be one of the worst movies ever in terms of comics. I know you have like your Batmans and Robins and stuff. The reason this movie was made is so Fox could retain the license, and they couldn't at the time give it back to the MCU. And you could tell when you're watching this is one of the most heartless movies you've ever seen in your life. And yeah, that's not even the same one.
Oh, that's not even the same one?
If it's the other one, you got a great drink coaster on your hands.
Oh, this isn't even the right one. This is another reboot.
No, that's the 2000s one. I'm talking the 2015 fan forced it.
2015.
But you didn't buy it, JB. I'm telling you right now, you didn't buy it.
Wow, that must have been really bad.
The one that JB showed at least had Michael Chiklis as the Thing, and he was great. I couldn't even tell he was cast as the Thing in this newer one because he was just some CG mess. He didn't even look good. He didn't look like
no personality.
Yeah, he had no personality. Michael Chiklis in a rubber suit looked better than this CG guy. He had no chemistry at all with his best friend, Mr. Fantastic. They don't even use the word fantastic in this movie. Dr. Doom is some computer pirate something. I don't remember. Sue Storm has 2 different hair colors in the movie because of reshoots that they did. So they gave her a wig when they did reshoots. And she was you could just see her reading off her computer where her script was at. So this is one of the most heartless Rush movies I've ever seen. And it just broke my heart that they had to put out this movie instead of just you know what, we can give this back to Disney and they can actually do something fun and memorable with the property. Instead, we're going to make this shell of a movie that's a piece of garbage.
Wow.
I've got some positive things to say about Fan 4 Stick.
All right, I'm going to grab a drink of water. Have fun.
The beginning of this
was Silver Surfer in this?
No.
No. All right, this is
that was Rise of the Silver Surfer.
Yeah, I got it.
The beginning of this movie has some really interesting ideas and some pretty cool shot things that amount to kind of a body horror type of feel to it. Which when
this is the
you're
Funky Planet, right?
What?
Where they visit? Is this where they visit the Funky Planet? And
they go to the negative zone.
Okay, yeah, you're right. So the negative zone.
They get their powers from the negative zone. Yeah. Now, the one thing that I did dig about it is because if you come back from a space mission or a mission to the negative zone and your body is changing into a rock monster, it's going to affect you. If you are all of a sudden stretchy, it's going to affect you. I thought that there were some really interesting concepts in the front half of this movie, but man, was it absolutely fucking terrible. It was abysmal. The story was terrible. The acting was terrible. The script was terrible. There were just minor things as far as concept that may have worked.
See, I can't hear him yet, but he's probably wrong.
No, I've never been wrong. I wouldn't start now. The
movie's worse than Green Lantern. You haven't seen
worse
Josh
than Green
Trank
Lantern.
Since.
Well, poor Josh Trank. I think that his vision was severely hampered. I don't think his vision would have been a good movie, but I do think it would have been better than what we got.
Next up, we got Ant-Man.
Loved it. I had a lot of fun with Ant-Man. I didn't think I was going to like it, and I thought it was a lot of fun. I think they nailed the casting for Ant-Man. You guys agree? I thought
Paul Rudd is the best possible choice in my opinion.
So when they first announced Paul Rudd being cast as Ant-Man, I shuddered and I'm like, I just dislike Paul Rudd on the screen.
You're the one person in the world who hates Paul Rudd.
Until this movie.
It's America's sweetheart.
Until this movie, man. Dude, I loved it. I loved Paul Rudd in this role. I loved this movie. This is another one of those ones that shows up almost every other weekend on replay on TNT or TBS or whatever other network. And Evangeline Lilly, however you pronounce her name. I like her in her role.
Evangeline. Yes.
Michael Douglas. I loved Michael Douglas.
Oh yeah, he was great.
He was great.
Hank Pym. All the names are escaping me. I like this movie a lot, more so than the second one. This one, I don't know what to say. Surprisingly, it seemed like it underperformed in the box office compared. It had a budget of 130 to 170 million and only did 520 million.
I thought Peyton Reed killed it on this movie, but I will constantly have in the back of my mind the thought process that this movie could have been directed by Edgar Wright. And that sits with me, and it kind of gives me this but what if feeling about it. Not that I don't love this movie. I think the script is great. I think that the special effects sequences are fantastic. And I think the casting was really good. So I don't really have a lot of negative things to say about Ant-Man.
Last movie on the list for tonight. We started with Avengers. We're going to finish with Avengers. Avengers Age of Ultron. Drew, what are your thoughts on Ultron?
This movie gets a lot of hate.
It does.
a lot of people are like, "Oh, it's the worst of the MCU," and you read a lot of those articles online where the movie nerds get together and they're like, "Oh, this movie sucks because of this, and that." Shut the fuck up! Shut the fuck up! All right. Scarlet Witch was great in this movie. Quicksilver might have been a little underserved, but he's here. We get the Vision out of this movie. Ultron was really great. I liked Spader's take on Ultron. It's kind of a petulant child who's so much Stark's personality. You get the first appearance of Ulysses Claw in this movie. Yeah. You get the Hulkbuster fight in this movie.
Yes.
You get the opening scene where they're coming through the woods to take out the Hydra agents in this movie. It's really freaking good. It's really freaking good. You get the scene where they're all standing around the table trying to lift the hammer, which is the biggest seed that they planted and paid off in Endgame.
It was awesome.
You're talking about the first seed planted for a moment that just talking about it gives me goosebumps. So say what you will about Age of Ultron. I think that it is a key part to the MCU and an absolutely fantastic movie that I rewatched probably more than the first Avengers.
I knew we had it. Age of Ultron.
Yeah, and Drew brings up a great point. A lot of hate for this movie, which is surprising to continue to hear that a lot of people disliked it or didn't like it, because it is the second highest performing film out of all of the films tonight at over $1.4 billion.
I think Age of Ultron kind of has that super CGI bloat to it. And just a lot of quippy dialogue, which is probably the first time when Hollywood, right, stood up and noticed that these superhero movies are the ones paying the bills and allowing them to make their gay dude eating cheese and farting on each other movies. And
edit that out, please.
Is that a thing?
I mean,
we're live, pal.
Yeah, we're live, pal. But at the same time, if you want your art house movie about raising horses and playing the piano on the beach or whatever the hell people are doing in these dramas, you need somebody to keep the lights on. And Hollywood has been in the hole. And these superhero movies are what pays the bills. They're what keeps the lights on and what allows these actors to do other things. And I think with Age of Ultron, you started seeing the old Hollywood or the independent cinema or the auteurs start to really rail against superhero movies and say, this isn't what cinema is. And it is what cinema is. It's what sells tickets to the theaters. You can be angry about it if you want. But yeah, this movie pretty much started the backlash, in my opinion.
All right, so that pretty much wraps up our discussion on the movies. When we come back for part 4, the first movie, don't talk about it now, Drew. I see you want to talk about it. The first movie we'll be talking about on the next part will be Batman versus Superman: Dawn of Justice, but we'll save that for next time because that's all the first one.
I need to save my energy.
So save your energy, playing your rants now, because that is the first movie on my list. I wanted to stop there for a reason. If we went on one more movie, we would be here 3 hours. But nonetheless, big thanks to everyone for joining us tonight. But we got one more piece of business to conduct, and that's what in the world we're going to read next week. So we kind of talked amongst ourselves, and we got a little bit of feedback from the comments last week. And I think, Andy, we're going to give you the pleasure of cutting off the voting. So instead of cutting off the voting Friday at 10 p.m., we're going to cut it off Thursday at 10 p.m., leading into Andy Given Thursday. So that way it gives everybody out there an extra day to read. So just so you guys know that as well. You got from right this second, I actually launched the poll at 10 p.m. tonight. You got from now until Thursday at 10 p.m. Eastern to get your votes in for these following books. So, of course, we talked about God Country. That finished second place last week. So by proxy, it will be put into the next vote for a second chance. I picked Superman Red Sun. We talked a little bit about Mark Millar tonight. This is one of Mark Millar's finest books he's ever done. One of his few pieces of DC work that's really resonated with people. They actually made an animated movie out of it. It's a pretty cool concept where Superman's ship lands in Russia instead of Smallville, Kansas. So kind of rooting for that, to be honest, but I think we got a nice lineup of books here. Andy, pitch me Daredevil by Chip Zdarsky.
Very nice.
Well, I mean, coming off of the Zdarsky run we just read, it seemed kind of fitting to read another Zdarsky run, and this is probably the most underappreciated current series out there right now. And I'm pretty sure a lot of people will agree with that. So from one Zdarsky run to another, if this one wins, it'd be really neat to see the contrasting characters for the same writer.
How many issues would we have to go? Because this thing this was a slow burn, right? I don't remember this one being fire from issue 1 or 2.
Issue 1 was pretty fire.
Okay.
But let's do the first 6 if it gets picked, and that'll be a good place to go. You guys know who did the interiors on this book?
Go ahead and say it. It's your buddy.
Chichetto.
Oh, Marco Cicchetto. But anyway, JB, pitch me on Little Bird.
Why not?
All right.
Comics.
My horse would be sick if Little Bird wins.
Why not? Yeah, it was cool. It was fun.
And then Drew was napping all day, so I just wanted to we made.
Yeah, I had a good one that I put in the private chat, but you already had everything all set up, so
my bad. But we picked Invincible by Robert Kirkman, the first trade. So, in my opinion, it's a phenomenal read. It takes 2 trades for this to truly breathe, but we're just going to stick with the first trade if it gets picked and see what happens. But one of my favorite runs of a comic ever. Robert Kirkman, mostly known for The Walking Dead. A lot of people sleep on his Invincible work. I think Invincible is a great book as well that a lot of people don't talk about and maybe should give a chance at some point. So decided to throw Invincible in there to see what would happen. But those are your picks on the poll right now. So get your picks in. Let us know what you want us to read next week. And once again, that vote will close 10 p.m. Eastern on Thursday, leading into Andy Given Thursday. So
I've got some incentive for people to vote as well, Carson.
Yeah, go ahead, Drew.
We're doing a giveaway, and we're doing it on the Daily Show. Okay, the Comic Core Daily Show. You can find me there, 1:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every weekday. All you got to do to get a mystery box of comics is to comment on those videos after they're reposted with your answer to our question of the day. It's real easy. There's timestamps in the videos. You can go back to any one of them and get an entry for this month. We're going to go ahead and do a drawing on the April 24th Friday night roundtable show. Got to be in the chat to win. So make sure you mark your calendars and you're in that April 24th show. We're going to go ahead and try to blow that up as a lead-in to Mainframe Comic Con. But in addition to that, if you vote in the Modern Men poll and you take the opportunity to let us know in the comments of that vote how you voted and why you voted that way, 5 entries.
Ooh.
5 entries, gang. Weekly until this thing ends, you can get 5 entries just for voting on the poll and letting us know why.
Wow.
Once again, that's on the Comic Core community tab. So right now there's already an interesting couple votes in place. We have a 2-way first place tie between Daredevil and Red Sun Superman. And I saw John's Comics with Kids talking about Little Bird. Little Bird's at 0%, buddy. So you got a little bit of work to do there. So
Little Bird wins.
The voting has already started.
Drew, can you do me a favor and tell us what that lunchtime? What the name of that lunchtime hour?
Oh, you're talking about the long box lunch break? Hashtag long box lunch break.
That is
starts with that guy right over there.
Right over here. Get the party started over here.
And then it comes over here to the Comic Core, where it's basically just me running my mouth for a half hour, and hopefully somebody's there to hear me do it.
Dude, that's fire.
So, Andy, I know where people can find you, but I need you to tell them about this new Thursday show you got going on.
Yeah, so Thursday nights, Chad Dad, affectionately I refer to him as Dad, has dubbed that Andy Given Thursday. All right. So what are we going to do on Thursday nights? This is a perfect opportunity to showcase Mainframe Comic Con. So next Thursday, we're going to have this upcoming Thursday. Today's Monday. We're going to have Chuckload of Comics. We're going to have the Chump Cast on, and we're going to have a couple of other guests and some special announcements. And we're going to go over what this looks like and will feel like for the individual at home. You know what I mean? There'll be some questions. There'll be some answers, but we really want to see this and talk about this from the perspective of the individuals at home that are excited about this and where they can go and what they can do. And, I'm really excited is to pick their brains on the cosplay avenue of this event. I'm not a cosplayer by any means myself, but I'm a big people watcher, and I love seeing the work that people put into these cosplay events.
I'm not a cosplayer, but if I was going to cosplay, I cosplay as Ricky Markstadt, the toilet licker. Ricky, what's going on with the toilet licking, man? We're all concerned about you.
That
he's trying to get it over, and you're helping him. Drew. You love it.
It's his gimmick. I don't know if that's a good thing, but I mean, hopefully for him.
Where you can find me, of course, here on Modern Men every Monday at 10 p.m. Eastern. You can also find me Comic Core Roundtable, 10 p.m. Eastern, Fridays. Probably have to work during this one, so I'll be off during that one. But tomorrow we'll be going live at 7 p.m. Eastern. It's Tuesday. I have the day off. I'm doing a Tuesday night live stream finally again. So I'm going to create a list, top 10 sketches in my collection. So I already showed my top 50 books. Ooh. That's the tag that's going around right now. I want to turn it into original art and sketches. So top 10 sketches and original art in your collection. And I'm going to show off mine. So that's my plan for my live stream tomorrow. But other than that, definitely check out MainframeComicCon.com. Link is in the description below. That's April 25th and 26th. You can pretty much see this whole cast of characters there, as well as Chuckload of Comics, the guys from the Chump Cast, and pretty much every member of the Comic Corps. So with all that being said, JB, would you like to give us the sign out?
Yeah, don't forget to enter my contest and win a pop tomorrow. And as always, don't forget, we had a good time.
We did have a good time.